Hello children, in today's class we are going to learn about role of microorganisms in nitrogen cycle. Before that, I want to tell that what is nitrogen fixation. You are all aware that nitrogen is used by life forms to carry out many of the functions of life. For example, it is needed for the formation of proteins, amino acids and nucleic acids in living bodies. Nitrogen is very much essential for the plant life. You all are aware that air contains about 78% nitrogen. Even this nitrogen is present in the atmosphere in huge amount. The plants as well as animals, they are not able to utilize directly from the atmosphere. So how does nitrogen reach to the plant or to the animal body? That we are going to learn in this class. So what is the definition of nitrogen fixation? What do you mean by nitrogen fixation? It is a process in which nitrogen is converted into a form in which it can be used by plants. Nitrogen fixation is a process of converting nitrogen from the atmosphere into a form in which it can be used by plants. This process we call it as nitrogen fixation. That means nitrogen is present in the atmosphere in gaseous form. That gaseous nitrogen cannot be absorbed by the plants directly. So it needs to be converted into some other form. That form of nitrogen can be easily absorbed by the plants for their life, for the survival of their life. So as you have already learnt in the previous class as well as in the chapter crop production, that nitrogen present in the atmosphere is converted into solid form, solid soluble form by a certain kind of bacteria present in the root nodules of leguminous plants such as peas and beans. So in the root nodules you can see these are called root nodules, swollen parts in the roots of which plants? Leguminous plants, pulses. So this root nodules allow the certain bacteria like rhizobium to live in this part. So when they are surviving here or living in the root nodules, they are getting shelter. In return, this bacteria will convert the atmospheric nitrogen and bring back to the soil in the form of some solid nitrates. So these solid nitrates they are soluble in the soil. So from the soil, these roots are absorbing the nitrogen in the form of nitrates. Thus, nitrogen from the atmosphere comes into the soil by the process we call it as nitrogen fixation. So who is the main key role beyond nitrogen fixation is certain bacteria called as nitrogen fixing bacteria. One of the example of that bacteria is rhizobium. That is rhizobium. Second method of nitrogen fixation is lightning. You know lightning? Whenever there is lightning occurring in the atmosphere, you can see here some amount of nitrogen also get converted into some soluble forms and come into the soil by the process of lightning. So nitrogen fixation in the atmosphere takes place by two ways. What are they? One is by nitrogen fixing bacteria or blue-green algae also. Another microorganism, blue-green algae. They also help in converting the atmospheric nitrogen and putting it in the soil in the form of some soluble nitrates or nitrites. So that process is called nitrogen fixation. So in that way, nitrogen reaches to the soil. So in this diagram, we can see atmospheric nitrogen How does it reach to the soil? You can see by the process of lightning and by the process of nitrogen fixing bacteria and blue-green algae, atmospheric nitrogen is converted into compounds of nitrogen in the soil. So here you can see two ways. One is lightning, another is nitrogen fixing bacteria or blue-green algae fix atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogenous compound. So that compounds are reaching to the soil. So nitrogen is here in free state, but it is coming in the form of here compounds. That is nitrogen compounds like nitrates or nitrites or nitrites. These compounds of nitrogen are utilized by the plants. So when the plants are consuming this nitrogen compound from the soil, they help in the formation of proteins, pulses. You know pulses, most of the leguminous plants means pulses. These pulses are rich in protein. Proteins contain nitrogen. So that nitrogen from atmosphere only it comes to the pulses through these many processes. So when the plants are taking these nitrogenous compounds from the soil, they make some protein, and that plants are giving that proteins to the animals, or animals eat these plants, they get protein from the plant's body. We don't directly take plants means we are consuming some plant products like fruits, vegetables, etc. We get proteins. Proteins are rich in nitrogen. So animals now they are getting the nitrogen from the plants. Directly we people or animals cannot get the nitrogen from the atmosphere. We get the nitrogen in the different form of compounds from the plants. These animals, when they eat the plants, they will excrete. What do they excrete? They urinate and they die. So when they urinate, urine is nothing but it is urea. It is a nitrogenous waste. Animals eat plants and release nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. Urea is nothing but urine. And also when these animals they die, they will release some waste, nitrogenous waste into the soil. So animals release the urea in the form of urine, or when they die, this nitrogenous waste reach to the soil. Once they reach to the soil, again some other kind of bacteria are there. This solid nitrogen gets converted into again gaseous nitrogen by another kind of bacteria. Here one kind of bacteria I told is nitrogen fixing bacteria. Conversion of atmospheric nitrogen which is in gaseous form becomes solid here. In this case, in second case, solid nitrogen in the form of nitrates or nitrites get converted into gaseous nitrogen by the action of another kind of bacteria. So in that way, this gaseous nitrogen reach to the atmosphere. This is the explanation of nitrogen cycle. In simple, if I want to define nitrogen cycle, the cyclic process of nitrogen being fixed, used by plants and animals, and later returned to the atmosphere is referred as nitrogen cycle. I repeat, the cyclic process of nitrogen being fixed, used by plants and animals, and later returned to the atmosphere. That process is known as, the cyclic process is known as nitrogen cycle. So you can see here, the microorganisms are playing a major role in nitrogen cycle. How the nitrogen present in the atmosphere gets converted into solid form, reaches to the soil, utilized by plants, taken by animals. Animals give back the nitrogen waste to the soil. Again that nitrogen compounds from the soil get converted into atmospheric nitrogen in the form of gas by another set of bacteria. In this way we can see the nitrogen cycle takes place in atmosphere. Thus amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains constant. Constant means it remains around 78%. 78% it remains the same. So nitrogen fixation is done by nitrogen fixing bacteria and another one is blue-green algae. These organisms are called biological nitrogen fixers. They are fixing the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. So they are called biological nitrogen fixers. In that way we can say some other kind of bacteria, what they do, they are converting the nitrates or nitrites into and this one gaseous nitrogen. That process is called denitrification. Denitrification means conversion of nitrates into nitrogen gas by another kind of bacteria, denitrifying bacteria. This process is called denitrification. Is it clear? So with that I conclude saying that nitrogen fixation ಆದಮೇಲೆ it is utilized by the animals. So this ammonification, nitrogen assimilation, that all we will learn in higher class in detail, makla. So today we will stop here, and with that I can conclude that this chapter is over. Thank you. Have a nice day.